Namaste. It gives me immense pleasure to be a part of the CIS talk series. I'm going to speak about the significance of travel in classical Sanskrit epics with parallels from Greco-Roman epics. Now, when I mention the word travel, or when you imagine yourself traveling to different lands, there are several emotions associated with it. You will have curiosity, you'll have wonder, you'll have a kind of fear. How are the people of different lands going to receive me? You will have a kind of anxiety, and your sole identity is in question. You might face a kind of identity crisis when you go to a different land. When you're in the place or in the land that you're familiar with and the people are familiar with you, you have certain amount of comfort. But once you're removed from your comfort zone, there are different varied emotions associated with it. So I'm going to talk about this element, this aspect of travel that is treated in the classical Sanskrit epics, that is the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and also the Greco-Roman epics, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid in Latin. So the Iliad and Odyssey are by Homer in Greek, in the Greek language, and Aeneid is in the Latin language by the poet Virgil. So today, with the growth of technology, places have come together, have come closer, and travel is very easy, is fast, is safe, and is quick. And the amount of fear associated with travel is less. But just let's go back by a few centuries or a few millennia to the times of Vyasa, Valmiki, Homer, and Virgil. Travel was such a difficult thing. It was an ordeal, more or less. It posed challenges to a person's very life. It brought about unexpected circumstances, and a person going to alien lands had to overcome several difficulties. So these things, these kind of emotions, which probably bothered the primitive man, the man in the times of these epic poets, these were the emotions that bothered him. So whatever subconsciously bothered man in the past have been consciously employed by these poets in their epics. Starting from the names of the epics, we have travel in them. So Ramayana, for instance, is Rama's travel. Ramasya Ayanam. Ayanam, the word Ayanam itself means travel. So the travel of Rama is not just the physical travel that he is doing. There's an emotional travel and a spiritual travel, and the travel is at several different levels. So Ramayana on one hand, and the Odyssey on the other hand. Today, the word Odyssey in English has come to be a very difficult journey, a difficult travel that a person does. So the very names of the epics, Ramayana and Odyssey, for instance, indicate travel. And as we very well know, the Ramayana has the travels of Rama. The Mahabharata has the travel of the Pandavas in the forest. It also has the travel of Krishna when he shifts his capital city from Mathura to Dwarka. And the Odyssey is an epic which is a continuation of the epic Iliad. So after the war of Troy, after the Trojan War, the Greek prince, the Greek king Odysseus is on his way back home. So the whole of Odyssey is a story of Odysseus' travels. And the Aeneid, which is an epic written by Virgil, like I had mentioned, is the travel of Aeneas, the hero of the epic. So most of these epics have large parts dedicated to travel. So why is it so? Why is it that travel is such a thing, such a common aspect of all ancient epics? What are the commonalities? What are the similarities between the epic traditions in India and the Greco-Roman tradition? And what are the differences is what we are going to see. First of all, what is the purpose of travel? Rama and Pandavas on one hand, and Odysseus and Aeneas on the other hand. For Odysseus and Aeneas, that is in Odyssey and Aeneid, the travel is with a purpose. First of all, the travel Odysseus' travel to Troy is to wage war and win back Helen, the queen of Sparta, for themselves, for the Greeks to get back Helen from the Trojan prince Paris. So there's a purpose associated with it. And his travel back home is with a purpose. He wants to get back home and get reunited with his wife. So the travel has a purpose. The travel of Aeneas also from Troy to Rome also has a specific purpose to re-establish the Trojan Empire which was destroyed and to take revenge on the Greeks. So it is with a specific purpose that these two heroes, Odysseus and Aeneas, are doing their travels. They are embarking on travel. But on the other hand, Rama does not have a purpose for his travel. It is just as a means of fulfillment of his father's desire. By traveling in the forest, he is not aiming to achieve something from it. The travel is the purpose and it is an end in itself in Rama's case. So is it in the Pandavas' case. After the gamble of dice, the dice which they gambled with, so the travel that comes after that is an end in itself, to stay in the forest for 12 years, that is the Vanavasa, and the Ajnatavasa, that is to follow after that, is an end in itself, and they are not planning to achieve anything out of the travel. But during Rama's travel, Sita got kidnapped and he had to get her back. That was a consequent thing. But that was not there in Rama's original plan. And Pandavas also did not have a plan of what they are going to do. So the travel was the means and it was an end in itself. But on the other hand, in the Odyssey and the Aeneas, and the Iliad, so travel was a means to a specific end. So there are seemingly very different purposes for the travel in the Indian tradition on one hand and the Greco-Roman tradition on the other hand. And next, how are these people traveling? In the Indian tradition, the travel is mainly on land. Rama travels through the forest and the Pandavas also travel through the forest. Then, in the Greco-Roman tradition, the travel is mainly on the seas. Yeah, Odysseus is traveling on the seas with a fleet of ships, and Aeneas is traveling on the seas with a fleet of ships. So there's the means of travel is also quite different, largely different in the two traditions. One is on the land and the other is on the seas. And how do these people treat travel? Rama, when he is told that he needs to go to forest, he accepts it with fortitude and he's calm and he enjoys every moment in the forest. So that is why, since Rama is kind of calm as it is, he has accepted travel in the forest graciously. He is able to enjoy the beauty of nature, the beauty of the mountains, the rivers, the trees, the birds and animals. He is able to enjoy the change of seasons and all that. So Rama is able to enjoy his travel. The process is something that gives him joy. The Pandavas similarly, although in the beginning Draupadi laments and she repents and she also accuses Yudhishthira for having gambled and brought them to such a situation, they encounter several seers and sages on their way, several rishis who give them kind of spiritual guidance and comfort, and they are calmed down. So they are able to enjoy their time in the forest and also make it fruitful. For instance, Arjuna, while in the forest, he goes to the Himalayas and gets the Pashupatastra. He also happens to go to the heavens, and there he is taught dance and several other art forms by the Gandharvas and the Apsaras there. So they put their travel into some use which will help them in the future. For instance, in the Ajnatavasa, when Arjuna is dressed as Brihannala, he is taking the role of Brihannala. Whatever he has learned during his travel in the forest comes to great help. And similarly, the arrows, the weapons that he has acquired, that also come to his help later in the war. But here in the Greco-Roman tradition, however, there's a constant conflict between these heroes on one hand and the nature on the other. The heroes are trying to conquer nature, they are trying to win over it, and the nature is similarly having an impact on them, a negative impact on them. The harmony that is seen in the Indian tradition between the characters and the nature is not seen in the Greco-Roman tradition. In India, we see ourselves as one with the whole. We don't see a difference between the human and the nature in the Vedantic tradition. But there, in the Greco-Roman tradition, one had to conquer over nature. And also, another great difference is, since the travel of Odyssey, it's for 10 years, 10 years he is on the sea, there's monotony. There's no chance to bring in descriptions of nature and all that, unlike in the Indian scenario, where since it is on the land, one can get the opportunity to describe the seasons and several other beautiful aspects, the natural beauty associated with travel on land. So these are two very contrasting aspects. So in the Indian tradition again, the travel of Rama and the Pandavas is with their families. So Rama travels with his wife and his brother. The Pandavas also travel together as a family, and they have an entourage of several saints and other associate people who come with them. So the family bonding becomes greater there, and as per the Vanaprastha dictum or the tenets of the Vanaprastha lifestyle, they maintain strict austerity, and they have a very cordial relationship throughout. So the family bondings get better, and they understand each other well, and all that happens while these people are in their travel in the forest. But on the other hand, the travel of Odysseus or Aeneas is on the seas, like I mentioned, and it is with the warriors. The warriors, as they encounter different lands, they ransack it, they rape women, they loot the places, and they even quarrel within themselves. So, although at some level friendship is strengthened between the travelers, on the other hand, they are also competitors between each other, and there's a kind of conflict and quarrel between themselves. So there's no family which travels together in the Greco-Roman tradition, but in the Indian tradition, it's the whole family that travels. So that's one thing. And there's another major difference between the travel in the Indian context and the Greco-Roman context. In the Indian context, we have a travel through different holy places, different religious or spiritual places, which is called the Tirtha Yatra. It's a circuit of places which encompasses several rivers, several places where several mythological events are supposed to have happened. Several legends are associated with every place, and there's a circuit defined for it. So that's the Tirtha Yatra that is present in the Indian tradition. But in the Greco-Roman tradition, there's no Tirtha Yatra like this. So it's just going one after the other place. Although there is some mythology associated with each place that Odysseus or Aeneas comes across, there's no circuit as like the Tirtha Yatra. So the Tirtha Yatra is something, another feature which is prominent in the Indian epics. Balarama goes on a Tirtha Yatra. The Pandavas also go on a Tirtha Yatra. So it kind of spiritually enriches them. So this concept is something that is absent in the Greco-Roman tradition. So what's more, why else would the poets have employed this feature of travel in their epics? One of the reasons could be that when these heroes are removed away from their homes, the Pandavas are away from their homes, from the Hastinapura. Odysseus is away from his capital city, the Ithaca, for he is 10 years at sea, and 10 years before that he was in the war, in the Trojan War. He was away from his house for 20 years. The Pandavas are away for 13 years in the forest. Rama is away for 14 years in the forest. So when the heroes are removed from their forests, the possibility of different kinds of emotions, the different kinds of situations they encounter is much higher. Just imagine if these heroes were within the comforts of their house, then things would be as natural as possible, and an epic could not have grown this large. They wouldn't have found conflicting emotions, or they wouldn't have severe events in their lives if they are right in the comforts of their houses or their palaces and all that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that travel gives a larger landscape for the poet to paint his poetic picture on. So it gives him an opportunity to expand the epic in terms of both time and space. So the Odyssey, the Iliad, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are very large in their geographical expanse and also in their timeline. This also gives an opportunity for the poet to describe different lands, the culture of different people that these heroes travel to. So it gives him more scope, more colors to paint with. But on the other hand, the Iliad is another epic, the first epic written by Homer. It's focused upon one place, that is the Troy, and it is just focused upon a very short span of time, the last 10 days of the war. So here, the opportunity to describe several things, to add detail or to add different flavors is much lesser, since the geographical expanse is very small and the time span is also very small. So it will be a quite a linear thing, quite a linear thing, and less colorful than when the poet has chosen a larger geographical expanse and a larger time span to describe. So it's not just that, it's not just this. There's one other feature that can be achieved by describing, by taking away the heroes from their hometowns. So when Rama is away from his home, we get to see what's happening back at Ayodhya. There's no king to rule the land. So all the enemies are probably trying to attack the land. When the Pandavas are away from Hastinapura, what kind of rule Duryodhana is doing? So when the hero is away from his home, what are the kind of things, what are the kind of events that happen back at home is something very interesting to see. If the hero was, say, he was at his house, then things would have been under better control, probably. This is also very well seen in the Odyssey, the epic of Homer. Once Odysseus is away from his home for 20 years, we see the kind of pativritya or the committedness, the faith that Penelope, Odysseus' wife, had on her husband. And for 20 years, she was so steadfast, she was so confident that her husband would come back. But then, when the king is away from his kingdom, we see that literally the kingdom of Ithaca, which is the kingdom of Odysseus, has literally gone to dogs. There's no good administration, there's no good collection of taxes, discipline is lost in the kingdom, and there are hundreds of men who are coming and bothering Penelope, Odysseus' wife, again and again to ask her hand in marriage. There are hundreds of people who come and bother her, and she's so steadfast and she's so committed to her husband that she does not accept any of these proposals. So this conflicts in emotions, this conflicts in human values or morals, all that can be very well brought about in this when travel is employed as a feature in the epics. So this is probably why all the epic poets, Vyasa, Valmiki, Homer, Virgil, all of them have used travel as one of their core aspects in their epics. And coming to the later epics, inspired by the tradition of Vyasa and Valmiki, Kalidasa has written several works. One of them is the Raghuvamsha. Raghuvamsha is the story of the lineage of the kings who belong to the who are the ancestors and descendants of Raghu. So Raghuvamsha is one of his epics, which takes inspiration from the Ramayana. There he adds yet another element to this travel. In the 13th canto of Raghuvamsha, Rama and Sita come back to Ayodhya through the sky. This is a small episode in the Ramayana also, in Valmiki's Ramayana, but that has been very artistically elaborated by Kalidasa in his Raghuvamsha. In the 13th canto, Sita and Rama, Lakshmana and their whole, the Vanar Sainya, all of them embark on a sky travel on the Pushpaka Vimana from Sri Lanka, that is today Sri Lanka, that was called Lanka in the past, Lanka to Ayodhya. So by doing this, the poet gives a bird's eye view of different landscapes, different seascapes, and different skyscapes. He gives how a person traveling in a flight above, high in the skies would look at these places. So he describes the travel of Rama on the land and the travel back on the sky. So he has achieved two things at the same time. It's not just that he not only gives nature's description, as these people pass through different places on the Pushpaka Vimana, it's a counter chronological recollection of events associated with every place, events and emotions associated with every place, because they are going from south to the north. So this is another technique that Kalidasa employs. So similarly, inspired by Homer's tradition, Virgil wrote in Latin. Virgil wrote the Aeneid in Latin. That was inspired by the Iliad and the Odyssey. And also inspired by thus, by Odyssey, Apollonius, one of the poets of Rhodes, he wrote a poem, he wrote an epic poetry, an epic poem based on the adventures of Jason. So that's again travel on the seas. So this travel is something that has been a constant feature in all the ancient epics. So, like I said, it gives them a larger framework, a larger landscape, a larger canvas to paint their poetic picture on when travel is employed as a feature in these epics. What more, in the Raghuvamsha, it's not just Rama and Sita's travel through the sky that is described. Kalidasa also describes Raghu's, the king Raghu's, Digvijaya, his travel through the entire Indian subcontinent. So there, by doing that, he is able to show what the kind of lifestyle was present during his own times. Kalidasa would have described whatever he had seen as a poet or as a person living in his times. He probably lived during the Gupta Empire, during the reign of Chandragupta, Vikramaditya, Samudragupta, then Kumaragupta and Skandagupta. He probably lived during the lives of either 4 or 5 kings. So the culture that was present in different parts of India during that time is very well described poetically through the Digvijaya of Raghu. So by employing this aspect of Digvijaya, he is able to enhance, add beauty to his epic, and at the same time show how courageous, how valorous, and how good an emperor Raghu was. That's one thing. And it also gives a chance to show Veerarasa in Raghu and the Shrungara in Rama and Sita, or once they are coming back on the Pushpak Vimana. It has both Vipralamba Shrungara, the pain of separation, love and separation, as a recollection as they see different places, and Sambhoga Shrungara because they are together in the Vimana. So the Raghuvamsha is itself the story of Raghu, like I said. So the Digvijaya of Raghu is also very well put. And there's something else that is very interesting in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. In the Ramayana, the journey of Rama is from the north to the south and back from south to the north. But in the Mahabharata, Krishna's journey, Krishna is the hero of, in some sense, the hero of Mahabharata. His journey is from the east to the west. So in this sense, Valmiki and Vyasa have covered the length and breadth of India in their epic poems. Okay. And it's not merely travel to physical lands or real lands that is described in these epics. There are travels to mythical lands also. Arjuna's travel to the Indraloka, to the Swargaloka is one such episode. And Odysseus traveled to the hell, to Naraka. The Naraka, the concept that is seen in the Greco-Roman tradition, that's another thing. So by description, by describing the Swarga, the heavens, or the hell, these poets are able to again reflect upon the fascinations or the mythological feel that the people had. And also, as these people travel either through mythical lands or through real lands, there are several legends and myths associated with every place they come across. So this myth creation is another exemplary feature of any living tradition. So as and when these people come to different lands, they hear different stories and different fables, different legends associated with each of these lands. So in summary, this is something which needs to be paid attention to. Why, how, and what kind of travel is employed by epic poets, and what is the feature that is adding. We really don't know if these poets actually travel to these places, but by reading these epics, they certainly help the reader embark on a journey through these places in the poetic ship that the poet has created in his epic. Okay, with that I would like to conclude. The epic Odyssey by Homer does not just contain the travels of the hero Odysseus, but it also contains within itself two fake Odysseys that are narrated as travelogues but by Odysseus himself. So one of the fake Odysseys that is narrated by Odysseus is to the Phoenician king, and the other fake Odyssey is to the swineherd on the coast of his kingdom Ithaca that he encounters as he is on his way back home. So there are two fake Odysseys, and on top of it, there is also what is called the Telemachy, which is the travels of his son Telemachus. So the word Odyssey is relevant at several different levels. It's first of all the travel of Odysseus, second of all the travel of his son Telemachus, which is called the Telemachy, and the two fake Odysseys that Odysseus himself narrates within the epic. I would like to thank Shatavadani Dr. R. Ganesh and Professor L.V. Shantakumari for their help in choosing the topic that I have currently presented and also for their inputs in preparing the presentation. Thank you.